Alright boys, so in today's video we're going to be comparing Koyanskaya or Tamamo Vitch with Merlin because I saw a lot of comments on yesterday's video, just a lot of people being like, I guess Merlin's completely dead now, no need to ever use Merlin again, just take that guy, swoosh him into the trash, don't need him anymore, Tamamo Vitch is in town. And while I do think Tamamo Vitch is going to be very good when it comes to buster farming and way better than Merlin, you know, for being able to loop with your buster servants, when it comes to like challenge quests and, you know, fighting longer fights, Merlin's not out of the equation. Like, if anything, he's going to be better to run over Koyanskaya for longer fights because of how he's built. So that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. If you enjoy FGO content, I upload these videos every single day, and all I ask for in return is a like on the video and a subscribe to the channel. But if you're feeling extra feisty and you really like what I do, you can click that join button and become a channel member. Now, with that being said, I feel like the first point of comparison comes from the way that their actual decks are built and the actual class that both of them hold. So, Merlin's a caster, right? I don't think that's really making any bold statements here on the channel, right? He's a caster, very standard support, you know, nothing really unique to be said there. It's like he's a caster, he supports whoop-de-doo, right? Koyanskaya, though, as an assassin, has this insane base star gen rate, meaning that not only does she function as this buster support type servant, but with her deck, she's functioning as a star gen as well. And now that we're getting a bit more numbers and we're getting more gameplay of Koyanskaya, we can actually see that she can drop about like 30 stars if you're able to get her in like a decent Brave chain. And God forbid you fire off her NP with any crit star generation buff. Because if we look down here, she has a 8-hit buster NP. So it's like if you can slap on anyone's crit star buff, which I mean, maybe we'll talk about it a bit later about pairing these two together because Merlin is giving her a front 50%, but if you're able to do that, she's able to drop a lot of stars for the party. So it's almost like comparing their decks is a bit wonky to do because they have two completely different, you know, things that they're supposed to be doing. Like Merlin over here is a caster, you know, again, only bold statements on this channel, but as a caster, he has a triple arts deck, so what he's contributing is more like less so is that for him to get his NP easier, but more so it's easier for you to arch chain with your buster servants when you're using Merlin. Because say you have someone like Heracles or Ku Alter, right? You're using a very powerful buster Zerk, but they only have one arts card. When that arts card comes around, you always want to make the most out of it because, you know, it could be like 2-3 turns before you see it again, you know, without any, you know, card shuffling shenanigans or BB nonsense, right? Without any of that, you might not see it for a bit. So you want to make full use of that. And when you have people like double Merlin, where you have 6 extra arts cards, well, technically 8 if you include their NPs, if you have those flooding your actual, like, your deck of cards, right? Because if you didn't know, in FGO, it is like, there's like the 15 cards that like each of the servants has, right? Because these each count as an individual card. Those get shuffled into the deck, and then when you use them, they leave until you've used like all 15 of your cards, right? So when you flood the deck with so many arts cards, you basically have a higher chance of being able to like arch chain with one of those berserkers, or like just a servant that only has like 1 or 2 arts cards, right? And it just really helps them out in getting arch chains to help them get their NP back. So having that is very vital when it comes to like buster team comps. Whereas like Koyanskaya kind of forgoes that because she's one of those servants that only has 1 arts card, but she's forgoing that to be a better star gen. Now, on the matter of like which one is better when it comes to star gen, Merlin does it passively with his NP, whereas Koyanskaya, you have to like Brave chain with her, which, I mean, if I'm doing a boss fight, I'd probably rather just get it passively with Merlin's NP, but she also drops immediately far more stars than Merlin does. I mean, again, in just like a quick buster, quick Brave chain, she can drop like 30 to 33 stars, whereas like Merlin on his NP, even if you have like double Merlin, and you had them both overcharged too, that's only 20 stars a turn. Granted, that's a guaranteed 20 stars a turn for 5 turns. You know, we'll get to Merlin's NP in just a little bit. We'll talk about their utility, but as far as like the decks and how they're constructed, I think they're a bit too different to say which one is actually better when it comes to this department, because they're actually just doing 2 completely separate things. Like Merlin wants to help people like arch chain, right, and help them get their NP back, because that's kind of half of his kit, right, when it comes to his first skill and his NP and then his deck. It's like it's helping people get their NP back. and then Koyanskaya wants to gen stars for the party, so you can do big busty crits over here. Now, speaking of, let's just go ahead and talk about their skills. When it comes to farming, Koyanskaya is going to be winning 10 times out of 10 because she has a targetable 50% battery, and then she's reducing skill cooldown by 2 turns, and you have that on double Koyanskaya, and you just slap this on like any servant that has, you know, just a decent battery, like a 50%, which are usually like 6 turns. You know, you can loop the whole buster thing, right? You can loop, quote unquote, because just by feeding raw NP into these buster servants, right? And it's really crazy. Merlin doesn't really have anything to compete with that. He's got like 20% battery immediately, and then he's giving like, what, 5% every turn for 5 turns? It's like, yeah, whoop-de-doo, buddy. Like, yeah, thanks for the 5% NP. I want all this now. So it's like, when it comes to farming, you know, she's winning out. Like, her second skill, I think this is like pretty busted, right? Like, I was like, there's really no other way for me to say this, because like human damage, like if we look at this as a special damage mod, this is bad when it's like Sanson, right? When Sanson over here is like, oh man, I want to give like extra damage to humans, right? I want to be able to get that big single target damage. It's like, well, Sanson, it's kind of tough cookies, because none of these humans, except for, I guess, these guys, none of these are servants, right? But do you know that you fight a lot of these dudes when it comes to farming? So as a like farming servant and a farming quote-unquote support, this is crazy, because her damage mod you can actually use, and it's going to really just drastically beef up the amount of damage you do to these people, right? Especially because these are common, because like, how many events do you fight like regular goon soldiers, or like Amazon people, or these like weird Shimosa people? No, not Shimosa, Salem people. Like, they're just really common enemies to be fighting in like events and just farming nodes. So it's like, the fact that she gives that is insane, right? Because you're going to get a lot of use out of that. And then the man attribute, because it's actually like attribute based like this, you get to just hit any of these servants with this, right? So God forbid you're using like Arjuna Altar or Morgan for farming. If you run into any of these servants, they're getting just blasted by like this like 50% extra man damage. It's insane, right? So it's like, she has that, and then she brings in the like this, what I think is like almost revolutionary, right? Whereas like she attacks with buster cards, you double stack it with double Koyanskaya, and your buster cards refund you 20% NP every time you click them, right? It's stupid broken, right? And like Merlin is a very well constructed servant, but he does not have anything that's like on this level. Like, I think this right here, like this is good. This just makes her like buster farming servant, but this is allowing her to compete when it comes to challenge quests, right? I still think Merlin has a place there, but it's like, dude, if you're not bringing one Vitch to challenge quest for the buster servant, you're losing out on so much like immediate NP. And maybe that's where like most of the discussion comes down to, is that Koyanskaya is very like immediate, like wham, in the moment, like I'm doing damage now, I'm giving you 50% NP now, I'm giving you 20% NP on buster card now. Whereas Merlin is like, sure, you can get more in the long run, and you can get a lot of like very good just passive buffs going, but it takes time to build up, right? Like, and it takes him time to kind of get to that like crazy level where he's like dropping a lot of like HP, stars, you know, NP. Typically you want to get like 2 stacks of his NP going, and then you have like double Merlin with 2 stacks. God forbid you have like overcharge, you know, that's when you have like stars and HP and NP just flowing all over the place, and it's crazy. The one area that he does win is not that skill, and there is their third skill. Yeah, we'll talk about these app-in skills later. Those are stupid broken, but anyway, the third skill is where I think Merlin's kind of wins out, because if you want to do more damage, you use Merlin, right? Because obviously he's giving 100% crit damage. But if you want more consistency, you're gonna go with Koyanskaya, because you're still getting the 50% buster buff, you're not getting the HP, and you're not getting 100% general crit damage, but you're getting 50% buster crit damage, which is what you want to do anyway. And then she's giving you specific star weight to your buster cards by 5,000%. That's basically to say that even if you're like some berserker, you're some avenger, some just servant with low star gen value or star weight value, you're getting those stars. Like, that is just like here, buddy, I'm gonna guarantee that you crit on every one of those buster cards, right? That is what makes this crazy. Again, if you want to do like one really big meme turn and you want to have like one turn of like 1.5 million crit damage, then you're gonna do like the Merlin like cycle buffing thing where you double buff everybody with Merlin, right? By like plugs hitting them into the back and then waiting for them to come back, and you know, after everybody else dies, you know, you recycle everybody through. You're gonna do that with Merlin, but this is probably gonna be more consistent and better when it comes to actual, you know, getting general results of what you want, right? Because if you're doing a boss fight, you can tell me I can't tell you how many times I've like done a turn of crit damage and then I have more stars available because Merlin, you know, once you get him set up and get going, he can drop a lot of stars like every single turn, especially with 2 of them. But then you're like, my crit damage is gone. So now like my damage has been severely hampered, right? I think this right here, where it's the crit damage for 1 turn instead of it being like 3 turns, is really starting to show its age, because this is just going to be more consistent and better when it comes to like actual those longer term fights, right? The only area that I really think Merlin wins, because I mean this has really just been like, well, I mean it's like Merlin may have like some case when it comes to like their deck, but then when it comes to their skills, it's like Koyanskaya is kind of giving everything better, right? The only thing she doesn't do is give survivability. This is a huge point you could give to Merlin, is that he has a party-wide invincibility. I mean, these are nice effects, but it's really just that like you have an AoE nope skill. You can just tell them, be like, nope, sorry buddy, nobody's doing damage to me this turn. That's probably the only area when it comes to skills that you can give to Merlin, because I mean, even though yeah, on that first turn you could do more damage with double Merlin, on turns 2 and 3 you're going to do drastically more damage because you've just completely lost a massive part of your damage, right? Whereas Koyanskaya is just like, yeah, have fun doing like 3 turns of big busty crits. So, and it's like, the only area I think she can win out, or he can win out, is when it comes to the NP, because her NP is not bad. Like, let me get out and say that. I know I said in the video that I was like, I think this is the worst area for her, but if this is the worst area for her, it could tell you that that's just how good she is, like how well she's been built, because she's giving the party at least 10% NP when she fires it. She has this 20% attack buff, multiplying into a passive 20% NP damage buff over here. And then she's gonna do decent damage because of its high hits. If you have the star gen buffed in any way at all, she's gonna drop a lot of stars. And then she's controlling enemy NP gauge, right? By like, you know, reducing their NP gauge by 1, which is giving you control over your enemy's NP, which you could argue is like still a very good form of survivability, right? Because like, I guess the argument you can make is like, why do you need to have an invincibility if you just constantly reduce their NP gauge? You know, you just constantly make it to where your opponents can't NP. There's obviously situations where like you pop a break bar and the enemy automatically gets 100% of their NP and they just blast you. So you do want hard survivability, but she does at least have something to kind of keep people alive. But even like as good as that is, Merlin's NP is so basic, it's just so good, right? Like you're getting HP every turn, you're getting NP every turn, and you're getting stars every turn. It's like, it's just so generally good. In fact, it's so generally good that you can just start using it in other team comps, right? You can just start slapping in like a Castoria and Jean and slap Merlin in there, even though like you're losing out on what's arguably like his most, you know, unique and best skill, you know, hero creation. His NP is probably secretly the best thing about him, because it allows him to slide into any team comp and give them everything they could possibly want. More NP, who doesn't want more of that? More HP, who doesn't want to stay alive? And then extra stars every turn. I mean, it's going to help you crit, going to help you get more arts. Crit's going to help them NP and, you know, continue on whatever you're trying to do, you know? So, Merlin, I think because of his NP, because his NP is so basically good, I think that'll always keep him somewhat relevant. The problem is that they haven't touched Merlin since he came out. And you got to remember, this is a year 1 support caster. The fact that he's still in this discussion with Koyanskaya, who is the 6th year anniversary SSR, right? Premium Buster support. The fact that he's still able to kind of hang there in the discussion is like a testament to how well he was built. But I think cracks are starting to show. You know, his first skill basically got power crept by Castoria, because Castoria has this skill, except it's a 30% charge for the entire party, right? Like that got power crept. And then this, even though this does more damage than Vitch's third skill, not that, sorry, I'm farming Summer 4, leave me alone. But even though it does more damage than not Summer 4, than her third skill, you know, this is going to be better for those longer fights. Like we don't have fights where it's just one giant enemy with 1 million HP, right? You don't have Tiamat or Goetia anymore. You have like enemies with 4 or 5 break bars, and you need to have consistent damage to make sure you can consistently keep the heat up on them, right? So having this, well, this is up for 3 turns and down for 3 because it's on a 6-turn cooldown. You know, this stuff is like crazy. This is kind of what we more need, where this is starting to show its age. Like if this, God forbid, this gets buffed to be like a 3-turn buff, I don't know, they'd pump that up to like 5k max HP, and please, like, don't touch that. Don't make that any higher. Don't make it like 75%. Don't do that. Because then Merlin, he's gonna just plop his nuts down on the table and be like, I do way too much damage for the entire party. So it's like, he needs to get some buffs in some areas to kind of compete, because he's showing his age. I think probably the easiest place they could buff him, honestly, is with his NP. Because, like, if you just buff it to, like, where at NP1 it starts at, like, 2,500 and it goes up to, let's say, like, 4,000 to 5,000 at NP5. I know that's a lot, but since it's just solely a support NP and it is Merlin, like, why not? Let's just make him really good. Let's make him nutty busted. Make this, like, 10% NP every turn. And then, I think this is the main one. The HP, I think, needs to get buffed so it's a bit more impactful. This could probably actually stay the same, but this needs to go up, because 5 at overcharge 1... really isn't all that much. I know they want you to like loop it twice with both Merlin, so you get like 20 even at overcharge 1, but I think maybe bump it to even just starting at 10, and then it goes to like, because who's ever getting overcharge 5 with Merlin? Just make it like, I don't know, just 35 stars or something. I don't know, 40 stars. Just make it something nutty, right? Because nobody's ever getting that high when it comes to Merlin, and if they do, they deserve to be massively rewarded. But I hope this kind of answers you guys' questions when it comes to like Merlin versus Koyanskaya, because I was seeing that in a lot of the comments where it was like Koyanskaya makes Merlin irrelevant. It's like, well, not necessarily. It's like Koyanskaya, I think when it comes to her skills and the way that she's built, I do think she's better built. I like the way that she's constructed as a servant. But I think what keeps Merlin relevant is the fact that his NP is godly, right? Like, this is insanely good. This third skill still will allow for, like, ridiculous high-level single turns, right? So, like, if you just need to fight one person for, like, and they don't have, like, crazy break bars, or maybe they only have, like, 1 break bar, so you NP the first one, and then you need to just choke slam the second one, you can bring Merlin, right? He's still relevant there. This will always be good. In fact, this second part here pairs very well with Koyanskaya's own NP because of how many hits it has. So it's like, he's not bad. And like, don't misunderstand. I'm not saying like, oh, his charisma skill sucks. This is good still. I'm just saying it's getting power crept, right? Because you have people like Koyanskaya, who's now a busted support that dumps, you know, 50% onto, you know, whoever she wants. And then this skill in and of itself just got power crept by Castoria, right? Who has the exact same skill, just slightly better. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. You know, personally, I would quite handily give the dub to Koyanskaya, because I think between this skill for farming and like this skill for higher, or like this and this skill when it comes to actual harder difficult content, I think those are both going to be immensely useful. This skill kind of doubling as like a farming skill and like a boss killing skill, I think is really powerful. And Merlin just needs to get something to kind of compete with that. So with that being said, let me know what you guys' thoughts are in the comments down below. Love to hear what you guys have to say. And with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace. Late, guys.